Yo, 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 what's up, people? It's your boy Jew coming at you guys with another edition of What's the Word, Dirty Bird. We do this every Tuesday at 11 a.m., usually to about 12 p.m. Eastern Time. But with that being said, I do want to talk about, give my thoughts on the season finale, basically, of this 2024 season. Want to give my thoughts also on Coach Raheem Morris. And is Coach Raheem Morris the right man for the job as far as leading this Atlanta Falcons team to the playoffs and ultimately to a Super Bowl? So I'm going to definitely give you guys my thoughts and things of that nature. But as you guys come in, if you could hit that like button for your boy, if you're not subscribed to the channel and you enjoy my content, please hit that subscribe button for your boy as well. We on the road to 3K and beyond. But with that being said, I'm gonna say what's up to the few that's already joined here in the chat. The first one that I see here is Bucks, Rays, and Bolts. He says, "How'd you talk sports?" Bucks fan in the house. So good luck to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They win the division for the fourth straight season. Right now, they're atop the NFC South. They're the kings of the NFC South currently. So hopefully, our Atlanta Falcons next year can dethrone the Buccaneers. But to be the best, you got to beat the best. And right now, they're the cream of the crop when it comes to the NFC South. They've run the division for the last 4 years. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't believe that that's been done in the NFC South, a team to win the conference or win our division for four straight seasons. So shouts out to the Buccaneers. Even though we did beat you guys twice this year, we did sweep you guys. The Falcons didn't finish the deal. We didn't close the deal. So shouts out to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on making a playoff push. And we can see how far you guys are going to be able to, get this season as far as trying to make a playoff run. And let's see here. And he says, "How are you guys going to know fired Morris bad coach Bill Belichick should have gotten the job?" Uh, I'm not too sure what you're trying to say there, Bucks and Rays and Boats. Put that back in the chat again. But shouts out to Prince Kales 89. I appreciate you joining me as well. Shouts out to Miss Sonia in the building. I appreciate you always joining me as well. I hope you guys are having a great week so far. We're still early in the week, only Tuesday, but I hope you guys are having a great week so far. Georgia Texas boy says, "What it do, Jew, AFN, and Falcons fam? What's going on, man?" And Bucks Raising Boat says Saints have done four straight too. Okay, well that's shocking to me. I thought it was only three, but if the Saints have done it four straight times as well, I want to see our Atlanta Falcons win the division four straight times. Well, first we got to just win it one time so we can get on the road. And my bro Mad Mike, 1/3 of the heavy hitters in the building, he says, "What's good? What's going on, bro? Y'all make sure y'all go show him some love on his channel. Hit that like and subscribe button as well." Raymond Elder says, "Sup, people? What's going on, man? I hope you're having a great day so far." And let's see. And Bucks Raising Boat says, "Yo, Raymond." Okay, so with that being said, I want to go ahead and just jump right into the topic of the day because I really don't want to go for too long today, maybe an hour. If I have to jump off all of a sudden, you guys know that it was an emergency, and I'll tell you guys because as you guys know, my wife is expecting. We're expecting a baby girl anytime at this point this month. So if I get that, I get the bat signal, I know that it's time for the baby to come. So you guys, I appreciate y'all joining me. I did want to go ahead and give my thoughts on the season wrap up and also talk about Coach Raheem Morris and is Raheem Morris the right man for the job? So first off, we're going to start with this 2024 season, and I stated this during our post game shows with the heavy hitters. This was a very disappointing season because I know that this Atlanta Falcons team, um, to me, we were the most talented roster in the NFC South. My bar that I set for that Atlanta Falcons, this Atlanta Falcons roster, was 10 to win 10 games. I thought that this team could get to double-digit wins just looking at our schedule, just looking at the way that the NFC South is currently set up. I felt like we had the best opportunity to win the South and also to be able to make it to the playoffs and possibly make a playoff push or a playoff run based off of the players that we brought in free agency, based off of the guys that we drafted, and based off of us bringing in a veteran quarterback like Kirk Cousins. I thought that they did a good job. Terry Fontenot in the front office, Raheem Morris, they put together a solid roster where we had depth on all fronts, but it didn't go our way. It didn't go our way. Now, a lot of people may not want to hear this, and I really feel like a lot of the fans are upset, just like as well as I'm upset and disappointed that this team didn't get the deal done and didn't get the job done. But I said a couple weeks ago, after one of our live shows on Wednesday nights with the heavy hitters, I basically told Mike and K Styles, this team reminds me of the 2015 Atlanta Falcons team, which was Dan Quinn's first year as our head coach, where the Atlanta Falcons started off 5-0, and then we just sputtered down the rest of the season. We went on a long losing streak, and we end up ending the season at 8-8. That was the first year that we had Dan Quinn as the head coach. First year with Kyle Shanahan being the offensive coordinator for our Atlanta Falcons, where it just seems like for whatever reason, things didn't click the way that they should have in 2015. We got off to a hot start similar to this year. And then from there on, everything just spiraled out of control. And we end up going on that long losing streak, similar to this year where Kirk Cousins had those 4 games where he played really bad and the team just made bad mistakes, bad coaching. It looks like we just took turns. Younghoe Koo missing field goals, guys not catching the ball. Just anything that could go wrong did go wrong at the wrong time. And as I always talk about, there's 1 to 2 to 3 plays in the game that will change the game, that will win you the game, that will lose you the game. Now, I know a lot of people want Raheem Morris fired. And based off of what I've been hearing and what I've been reading and what I've been seeing, I mentioned this prior to the season being over, that Arthur Blank doesn't have a history of firing head coaches after 1 season. And I do believe that it's the right decision to keep Raheem Morris as the head coach. And the reason I state that is a lot of fans right now, we're not making sober decisions. We're making drunk decisions and emotional decisions. I know everybody's disappointed. I know everybody wants Raheem Morris and this whole coaching staff fired. But personally, and this is just me personally, you can disagree with me, I don't feel like firing Raheem Morris necessarily is the right move because you set your team back. If you fire Raheem Morris and this coaching staff, Jimmy Lake, Zach Robinson, and these guys, basically that means all of these players that are currently on this roster that are coming back next season, your core guys that are still under contract, they're going to have to learn a whole new scheme. They're not possibly going to pick up right where they left off this season because now there's no chemistry there. And that's what I think that we're missing as the fan base. We just seen on paper this team had a lot of talent, but talent doesn't always win you games. And I just went and took a look back at the 2015 Atlanta Falcons roster because we know in 2015 we missed the playoffs. We went 8-8. We started off hot, similar to this season in 2024. Started off really good, and then we sputtered down the remainder of the season where things spiraled out of control. We went on that losing streak. So I went and took a look at the 2015 roster. In the 2015 roster and the 2016 roster, as far as the core players, is similar. When 2015, you had Matt Ryan, you had at the fullback position Patrick DeMarco, you had at the running back position Devontae Freeman, you had Julio Jones, you had the last year of Roddy White on the team, you had Levine Toilolo, and then on your offensive line, you had Jake Matthews, you had Andy Levitre, you had at the center position Michael Persons, you had at the right guard position Chris Chester, and you had Ryan Schrader at your right tackle position. Now, go on to say that is if you look at the 2016 roster, the only difference you made, you didn't have Roddy White. You brought in Mohamed Sanu to play the role of Roddy White as that number 2 wide receiver behind Julio Jones, and you basically let go of Michael Parsons at that center position, and you went out and brought in Alex Mack. So you made some small, you tailored your team a little bit and just brought in two new pieces on the offensive side of the ball. You added a couple of other guys like the Taylor Gabriels, but you really didn't make a whole lot of change. Personally, I feel like this Atlanta Falcons team should do the same exact thing. I don't believe that Raheem Morris should fire anybody on his staff as far as the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator. I don't feel like this team, to me, they showed enough promise where I think that this team, if you bring this same roster back next year, you went 8-9 this year, you should be able to improve at least from 2 to 3 games. So the next year's team should be able to win 10 to 11 games based off of what we saw this year. So just looking at that roster, the guys that I just mentioned on that 2015 roster, you only made 2 different changes. As I mentioned, you changed the center, brought in an all-pro center in Alex Mack. You lost Roddy White, who retired, and you brought in Mohamed Sanu. And that's pretty much your starting lineup remained the same. On the defensive side of the ball, you had Vic Beasley, you had Rashid Hageman, you had Paul Soliai, you had Tyson Jackson, you had Paul Warlow at the inside linebacker position, you had Justin Durant at the inside linebacker position. Outside linebacker, you had O'Brien Schofield. At the corner position, you had rookies and Robert Alford, rookie and Desmond Trufant. And then at the safety position, you had Ricardo Allen, and you had the last year of William Moore. On the defense, you only made a few changes as well. When I go and look at that 2016 roster, you basically had on the 2016 roster starting outside linebacker, you had Brooks Reed, you had Jonathan Babineau, who was also on that 2015 team. You had Grady Jarrett, who played a small role on that 2015 team as a rookie. You still had Vic Beasley. You still had Tyson Jackson. And then you brought in 2 linebackers. You brought in Deion Jones. You brought in Devondre Campbell to replace Paul Warlow and to replace Justin Durant, who were 2 guys that were thumpers. If that doesn't sound familiar, you brought in, or you kept Robert Alford. He was in his second year. Desmond Trufant was in his second year. You still had Ricardo Allen. And then you brought in the first round, your rookie, Keanu Neal, to replace William Moore. So you pretty much didn't do too many changes. The only change you made, you no longer had a guy in Croy Bierman. You replaced him with Brooks Reed, and you replaced Paul Soliai with Grady Jarrett in his position to play that nose position. And then you got more athletic at the linebacker position. So you no longer had Paul Warlow, who couldn't cover, similar to Nate Landman, who we currently have on this team. And then you went out, you got rid of Justin Durant, who was really not a guy that could really cover that well. And you went and got 2 linebackers that can cover and that were athletic in Devondre Campbell and Deion Jones. So when I look at this actual team, and then you lost William Moore and you brought in another thumper, but who was a little bit more athletic, because we know at William Moore, towards the end of his career, he had the injuries, and then he couldn't really move laterally, similar to Keanu Neal. So I really feel like this Atlanta Falcons team can do the same exact thing they did in 2015 going into 2016. I really feel like if they keep this core unit together, allow this team to continue to build upon what they did this year, I really feel like this Atlanta Falcons team could be a playoff team next year and could possibly make a strong playoff push next year, meaning a deep playoff run, because you'll be bringing back the same philosophy. Now, one thing that I will say on this particular coaching staff on the defensive side, they're going to have to make some adjustments on the defensive side, meaning I don't want to see my linebackers and Matthew Judon covering a running back 50, 60 yards down the field trying to chase a guy that's running a swing, a go route. I don't want to see that next year. I don't want to see next year us come back with the same linebacking core. Now, you did have Troy Anderson on this team, but Troy Anderson is showing that he's injury prone. So you're going to have to bring in possibly what I would personally do if I were the Atlanta Falcons. I would bring in 2 linebackers like we did in 2016. Go get you 2 linebackers that can cover and that are athletic, that can run sideline to sideline. Move Caden Ellis and make him strictly a pass rusher. You can move him around on occasion, like you see a Michael Parsons, but Troy Anderson basically is a poor man's, Caden Ellis is a poor man's Michael Parsons. You want to use him similar to the way that the Cowboys was using Michael Parsons originally, where they were moving him around, but he's mainly a pass rusher, and that's what Caden Ellis is at his best. So if I were the Atlanta Falcons, this team is not far off from being able to win 10 plus games, but they have a couple of spots on this team that they have to address. And one of those positions, or 2 of those positions, would be the linebackers. I wouldn't bring back Nate Landman unless he's a reserve player. I would go out and get me 2 linebackers that can run sideline to sideline, and then I would go and bring in some more guys that are athletic on the defensive line. But I would keep the core unit of this team together. The Jesse Bates is coming back. The Caden Ellis is coming back. Most likely, Grady Jarrett will be back. Onyemata is still under contract. Maybe you bring back a Eddie Goldman, but I still would bring in a defensive tackle in the draft, or somebody that can be a little bit more disruptive and a little bit more athletic at that defensive tackle position. But outside of that, I really don't feel like this team has a lot of holes. If you look at the safety position, even if you lose a Justin Simmons, a lot of people are forgetting, you still got DeMarco Hellams that's coming back from injury. I don't know what you do with a guy in Richie Grant. Do you bring Richie Grant back next season, or do you allow him to walk and you draft another safety that can compete, or do you re-sign a Justin Simmons to a 2-year deal, like a prove-it deal? Those are, up in the air. But personally, I really feel like this Atlanta Falcons team showed promise this year. I continuously say the problem with this Atlanta Falcons team this year was they were not consistent. Another thing that this Atlanta Falcons team showed, as far as the coaching staff, they were inexperienced. Jimmy Lake was not familiar with these players. Raheem Morris was not familiar with a lot of these players. Zach Robinson was not experienced with these players that we had on this roster. So you have to give those guys a chance to develop the chemistry. I really feel like chemistry was one of the biggest reasons why this Atlanta Falcons team struggled on defense early. Outside of the coaching, where they were playing 10 yards off the ball, which that's on Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake, I really feel like they were not using Caden Ellis early on to rush the passer enough. They were not using certain players in their right spots, and they didn't figure things out until late in the season. The back half of the season after the bye week is when we saw the team starting to get more sacks. We started to see the team started to gel a little bit more. But I'm huge on continuity. If you know the players, you know what positions to put them in and where they can best succeed. Was there some bad blunders as far as not calling timeout, not understanding time of possession? Yes. There was some huge coaching issues, and we're not going to gloss over that. But I feel like we're too focused on fire this guy, fire that guy. They can never win. Personally, I'm not on that train. I do believe that this Atlanta Falcons coaching staff, they know how to coach football. They understand the game of football. But the biggest thing that hurt the team this year was inexperience. We made too many mistakes in the wrong moments in games, which cost this Atlanta Falcons team. But I do believe that this team can get it done. So as far as the question of the day is Coach Raheem Morris the right man for the job? Personally, I think that he is. I think that he can actually get the job done, believe it or not. What is the annoying part for this Atlanta Falcons coaching staff is when you hear them make excuses, or when you hear them, say that we're making improvements, but you're not seeing it on the field, as far as we didn't see a playoff berth. And that's what the Atlanta Falcons fans, we want winners. We don't want excuses. We want winners. So I definitely understand the frustrations, because I have the same frustrations. And it's not to give these guys a pass or give these guys an excuse, but I really feel like Raheem Morris should have a leash at least for 2 years. So this year coming up, if we start off the season owing, whatever, that's when I can see, okay, now you're in trouble. You're on the hot seat. But I really feel like he still has a leash. Usually our owner gives coaches at least 3 seasons. And I really feel like we're gonna see the improvement that we want, because I saw improvement this year. Even though I was frustrated with the coaching, I was frustrated because I felt like players were put in positions where they couldn't succeed at times. I still saw flashes of this team can be special. And that's the frustrating thing about this whole thing that I'm talking about, is when you see the flashes of how good the team can be and how talented these players are, you wonder, why are they not getting the job done and why are they not winning? And it comes down to the small, intricate details that we talk about: the knowing when to call a timeout, the knowing when to call the right plays. If you're Zach Robinson, knowing how to set up plays. As I talk about, when you run the ball, to open up your pass. So you don't run the ball like we seen in this last game against the Panthers. You run the ball, you get a first down. You run the ball, you get a first down. Next play, we're in 5 wide on 1st and 10. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to run the ball. Okay, come out in a similar formation on 1st down. And then if you want to pass it, now play action off of that same look to confuse the defense, because they're going to assume if you ran the ball on 1st down and you got 8 to 10 yards, you ran the ball again, you got another 1st down. That next 1st down, common sense will tell you, if you're in a similar formation, the team is going to assume you're going to run the ball again. And that's when you throw the ball. You don't come out in a 5 wide spread and tell the team, show your hand, now we're passing the ball. If you're in a 5 wide, we know you're passing the ball. You want to come out in a similar formation to look like you're getting ready to do what you just did, because you're having success running the ball. You play action off of it. So I really feel like those small, intricate details, I feel like this coaching staff should learn from this year. Now, if they come out next year and they're doing the same exact thing as Zach Robinson, where you're running the ball with success, and then all of a sudden you in a 5 wide receiver, then we know they're hard-headed. They ain't learned from their mistakes. They didn't learn anything from this past season. But with that being said, I'm going to jump back into the chat. I know I went on my little rant, or, I was ranting and raving a little bit, but I just had to get that off my chest, because I've been seeing a lot of fire this guy, fire that guy. I'm completely fine. You're entitled to your own opinion. If you want to see all of these guys fired and clean house, just understand, if you bring in a new coach, that's not going to guarantee that you're going to have a winning season next year. That's going to set the team back. If you all of a sudden bring in a whole new coaching staff, just expect that the team is going to need that period where they're going, not saying that they can't make the playoffs if you change the coach next year, because you can make the playoffs in your first year. Jim Harbaugh just did it with the Chargers. You can do it, but the chances of you making a deep playoff push, if somebody in the chat can look up for me, how many first-year head coaches have won a Super Bowl or gotten to a Super Bowl? Look that up for me. If anybody can tell me any coach that you know that his first year, he took a team and he went to the Super Bowl. I don't know if it ever's been done, to be honest with you guys. I've seen guys make a playoff push, but I don't remember a coach that took over a team and the next year they were in the Super Bowl, outside of probably Tampa Bay Buccaneers when John Gruden. I think that they did it, but it's not your percentages. It's not likely that you're going to be able to get to a Super Bowl within your first year with a brand new team, brand new roster, because when you bring in a new coach, they may change the whole philosophy, meaning they need to draft their type of players. They're going to run their particular scheme. So whatever you learned to this year, this Falcons team, you will have to scrap everything that these guys pretty much have learned under this particular coaching staff if you change the head coach. But with that being said, shouts out to Ghost Peppers. He says, "What's good, you and Falcons family?" Let's see here. Georgia Texas boy says, "What I got from Morris PC is we will be having a newly defense in some type of way." Yeah, I don't know what changes they're gonna make, but they're gonna definitely have to tweak it. Man, Mike says it does remind me of the 2015, and that's my frustration. Exactly. Because we know that the team had promise, but for whatever reason, we didn't get it done. Georgia Texas boy says, "Go get Wade Phillips." I don't know if Wade Phillips want to come coach this Atlanta Falcons team, but I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to it. And Georgia Texas boy also says that means in 2025 we're going defensive heavy in the draft like 2016. We better. And shouts out to my boy 6 Man. He says, "The minister in the building. What's going on, 6 Man? That's 1/3 of the heavy hitters. Y'all go show him some love as well on his channel. Hit that like and subscribe button. And Earl Thomas says, not a fan of the defensive scheme. And I completely agree. I think that this the one thing that also needs to change, and I agree with you, Earl, is we need to be more aggressive. What pissed me off or ticked me off in the last game watching us play against the Panthers is Bryce Young looked way too comfortable to me. He was out there smiling. He was out there throwing no look passes. And, to me, he was just too comfortable. And to me, I don't like all of this. We bring everybody to the line and then we drop out 3 and 4 players in the zones. No, if you're going to show the house, bring it. Sometimes bring 8 players, bring more than they can block. Because what I didn't see in this past Sunday's game that kind of ticked me off was you never really put Bryce Young under pressure in that game. He didn't get touched. Really, he left the field with a clean jersey. And that's the reason why he was smirking, smiling, feeling good, because he wasn't being touched. He was basically out there playing 7-on-7 with pads on. He didn't get touched at all pretty much on Sunday. Sometimes you bring the pressure just to see if a quarterback can throw the ball under pressure. It's easy to throw the ball when there's no pressure on you. We've seen Kirk Cousins throw for 500 yards and he cannot move at all. And he threw for 500 yards against the Bucs because he was protected. But can Bryce Young do that when I bring all of these guys, bring 8 guys at the line of scrimmage and I blitz everybody? Can he still see over the line and make an accurate throw falling back or getting hit in the mouth? Is he still going to be willing to stand in there and take that punishment? Or is he going to start to doubt himself? I really feel like in the last game, we did him a favor by continuously dropping Judon, continuously dropping AK, dropping all of these linebackers and things of that nature in the flats and dropping guys and having guys cover our pass rushers now, having these guys cover running backs and wide receivers and tight ends down the field. To me, we never put him under any type of pressure. That has to change. This defense has to be more aggressive. We continuously said that all season long. So I completely agree with you, Earl. And man, Mike says, fine, Raheem Morris is not the answer. Getting the best out of the situation is what's best. However, he needs to change. And that's the perfect statement right there, man, Mike. Like, he needs to change. Everybody. Raheem needs to change. Jimmy Lake needs to change. And Zach Robinson needs to change. Over this offseason, what I want to see them come back and do is make the proper adjustments. I made a video right prior to the bye week of was Raheem Morris going to make the right adjustments and Jimmy Lake going to make the right adjustments on the defense. And they showed us some different things after the bye week, and we seen the fruits of their labor. We saw pressure on the quarterback. We had like 3 to 4 to 5 weeks in a row where we had 3 to 4 sacks in the game. Where early on we only had, I think in the first 10 weeks, we had like 10 sacks, which means that was only like 1 sack. We had some games where we didn't have any sacks. That just goes to show you, if you put the proper work in and you make the necessary adjustments, these guys can get the job done. But it's about them putting the work in, stop being stubborn and want to revert back to whatever your scheme is and go with what works and make in-game adjustments as well. That's another problem that I had this year with this team is we didn't see enough in-game adjustments. And that was the difference between wins and losses. You've seen in that Washington game, we pretty much shut Jaden Daniels down in that first half. But then Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury, those guys went in at halftime, made the proper adjustments, and we didn't make the proper adjustments. And that's why they were able to come back and win that game. So that's been our huge problem for this Falcons team is, yes, you may be doing something in the first half that's working, but if whatever you're doing is working, if the other coach is smart, they're going to go in and make the proper adjustments at halftime to switch up whatever you're doing that was working. They're going to switch up what they're doing to have success against whatever you're doing on the defense or on the offensive side of the ball. And to me, this year, I didn't see enough in-game adjustments as well from this Falcons team. I seen a team and coaches that were arrogant, that thought because we had so much talent that our talent was going to outbeat the schemes. And 9 times out of 10 in the NFL, your talent is not going to outwork a scheme, especially on the offense against defense. Because the game is so much offensive minded now, it's hard for a defensive player to have any type of advantage against the offense. So you're going to have to make the proper adjustments. You can't consistently show a team the same thing over and over and think that you're going to consistently win that way. You're going to have to make adjustments or you're going to get exposed. Prime example of that was the Legion of Boom. That cover three worked for a time period. But what did we do to that in 2016 to that same Legion of Boom defense? Matt Ryan diced them up. In that year we went to the Super Bowl, we faced that same Legion of Boom and Russell Wilson, that same team with beast mode, and we diced up that defense with Cam Chancellor, with those same guys. We exposed them, but we exposed them because we knew what they were going to do. Kyle Shanahan came in with the right game plan that I know that all the Legion of Boom does for the most part is run cover three, and they expect Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor to beat the scheme because they're great players. But that only works for a time period. The league catches up to whatever you're doing. So if you don't never adjust, they're going to catch up to what you're doing. And once the teams catch up, you're going to pay the price. And that's what ended up happening with that Seattle team. Not only did they lose player and they got old and they had injuries and things of that nature, but teams started to catch up to that particular defense and that style of defense. They figured out what the weaknesses was on that defense, and then they exposed those weaknesses. So we have to keep that in mind as a coach in Raheem Morris that only likes to run cover three and likes to run certain things, play soft zone. Teams have exposed that. They know how to beat it now. So you got to be able to be multifaceted and multidimensional. So maybe they do need to bring in another defensive mind that knows some other things. If they don't have somebody on this staff that can bring some different, bring a different defensive philosophy, so they can go in and out of. You don't have to necessarily get rid of the cover three altogether, but you better have a counter move to when the other team exposes that defense. You better have something you can counter it with. And to me, this year, I didn't see enough counters to what we were trying to do. I seen us just playing scared, getting comfortable, doing the things that makes us comfortable, and the teams exposed it. And Night Whisperer says, I've gotten over firing Raheem thanks to Jew's video. Hey, man, I appreciate it, man. Jew's video and commentary. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still on the fence about if the ownership decided that they want to fire him. The stuff that he did this year were fireable offenses. Don't get it wrong. He has some fireable offenses, but at the end of the day, thinking soberly, thinking with common sense, we have to understand that firing a coach means that you're patient enough to wait to have another losing season, because it doesn't guarantee your next guy you hire is going to come in because you got talent, that they're going to be able to click with these players, press the right buttons, and get this team to win immediately. Usually that does not happen. It's on occasion it will happen, but it's not guaranteed. The logical thing is the first year you come in and try to, lay down your identity, you try to put your fingerprints on the team. Usually that takes a full year for those guys to adjust. And now that these guys are not playing preseason games and things of that nature, a lot of the times your starters, those first 4 to 5 weeks, probably the first half of the season, to be honest with you, those guys are trying to adapt to the speed of the game. They're trying to adapt to the new philosophy. They're trying to grasp, what you do well. So it takes time. Unfortunately, we don't want to hear patience, because we've been hearing that over the last 7 years that we've been losing patience. But guess what? When Arthur Smith was fired, Raheem Morris came in with his whole new philosophy and his guys, and they brought in a whole new philosophy. When we had Arthur Smith, he had one mindset and one thing that he was preaching in the locker room. Now with Raheem Morris, these guys are preaching whatever their philosophy is, and it doesn't automatically just happen instantaneously. I don't care who you hire. Bill Belichick, it's not going to necessarily click right off the bat. It's not going to happen that way. So if you're looking for a quick microwave fix, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to happen. And Sonia Howard says Raheem needs to let Jimmy Lake do his job next season because playing off coverage is not working. And I completely agree with you. Sonia. I think that it needs to be collaborative. I think that Raheem Morris does need to help And I also think all of the coaches on this staff needs to give their input, and it needs to be a mix of all of their defensive schemes together. That's what it really needs to be. It doesn't necessarily need to be Jimmy Lake's scheme. It needs to be a collaborative mindset, because at the end of the day, everything falls back on Raheem Morris. So I don't care if he fires his DC, he fires his OC, what he does, what players he cuts. At the end of the day, if this Falcons team doesn't win, everything falls on the head man, which is Raheem Morris. So even though I was upset with Kyle Shanahan in the Super Bowl of not running the ball, all of the backlash came down on Dan Quinn because he was the head coach. He sat back and watched it happen. So because he allowed it, he still took the brunt of the blame. And let's see. And K Style says linebacker will be a strong look this offseason. It has to be. It has to be. We have to get some linebackers in here that can cover. We have to get linebackers in here that can play in space, because the new NFL, that's the way to go. A lot of teams are spreading teams out. They're throwing the ball. They're trying to find mismatches. And if you have linebackers that can't cover, they're going to get exposed. And the way that we play defense, we need linebackers that can cover, because we're playing the same similar defense to Dan Quinn's. That was my whole point of bringing up 2015 and 2016 in the roster construction. If you guys remember in 2015, when Dan Quinn first came in, usually when a head coach comes in his first season, he's going to have some of the players from the previous regime, because you only have so much money. So you're not going to be able to come in and replace the complete team. This is not college where you had a transfer portal and you can just bring in all of your players. You're going to have to coach at least for one season with some of the guys left over from the previous head coach. So you're going to have to deal with some of those guys that's already under contract, because you can't cut everybody. So in that first year, Paul Warlow was not a guy that Dan Quinn picked. Justin Durant was not a guy. These were guys that was basically carryovers from the previous regime when we had Mike Smith. So Dan Quinn just had to go one season with some of the guys that were already on the team. So that was the same thing that happened this year. Guys like Caden Ellis, guys like Nate Landman, they were already under contract when Raheem Morris got here. So he couldn't just come in and clean house and wipe out the whole linebacker room and bring in guys that he wanted. So what I'm looking for this year is them to bring in new linebackers in the draft. Now, one thing I can say is Terry Fontenot could have drafted some linebackers last year in the draft, but I really feel like they thought that they had the guys on the roster that could get the job done in Troy Anderson, who was really supposed to play that Caden Ellis role as far as being the middle linebacker, a guy that can run sideline to sideline. But because he's showing that he can't stay healthy, you're going to have to draft his replacement, unfortunately. Now, he can come back off, out of rehab next year, off injury reserve, and possibly still play a role, but I still would go in and replace him, because what he showed me over the first 3 years he's been in the league, or 2 years he's been in the league, he can't stay healthy. So when you see that a pattern of a guy that keeps getting hurt, keeps getting nicked up, you got to draft his replacement or somebody that can compete. Now, you did go out and get the kid, JD Bertrand, who played really well. He could be another guy that I didn't mention that could play that Caden Ellis role as well as a middle linebacker. I just don't know how well JD Bertrand covers. To me, he didn't show me that he's great in coverage. He just showed me that he's also a downhill type linebacker. But I do feel like we need to free up Caden Ellis a little bit more to let him do what he does best and flow downhill. Let's see here. I'm going to jump back into the chat really quick. And Mad Mike says, Raheem Morris gets no empathy from me. Situational coaching is a major problem for me. And I completely agree. He don't get no excuses there. Now, like I said, we see the same issues next year, then he's going to be on the hot seat. If we come out and we don't come out looking the way we're supposed to look, like we've learned from our mistakes last year, that's when I see Arthur Blank is going to start heating up that chair that he's sitting in as the head coach. He's going to start feeling some hot coals underneath his feet at that point. And I disagree with your statement, Andrew G. He says, as long as Raheem is an ATL, we not winning, people. I don't agree with that. I don't agree, because in 2015, I didn't think we were going to be able to win anything with Kyle Shanahan, because all he did in that first year was throw the ball to Julio Jones 100 times. I think Julio had like 139 receptions. And if for whatever reason, the next season, the offense looked completely different. He opened up the playbook. All of a sudden, we seeing Tevin Coleman catching balls out of the backfield. We seeing Taylor Gabriel on reverses. So I disagree. Now, I respectfully disagree. You can have your point. That's your opinion. I don't agree with that though. That statement that we can't win with Raheem. I think Raheem can win, and he proved that he can win because he was 6-3 at one point. So that just goes to show you right there, he was handling his business. We just collapsed. That's at the end of the day, he just didn't adjust, and we collapsed. And everybody got to take a piece of that blame pie. It's easy to just say get rid of the head coach. That's the easy thing to do. But how about some of these players that I weren't seeing a proper effort out of? I know we say that coaches should know how to motivate players, but to me, great players don't need a coach to motivate them. Great players are great players, period. Look at a Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis didn't need all the coaches that coach Ray Lewis. He never needed motivation, a motivational speech for him to play up to his capabilities. Ray Lewis was a player coach, meaning he was a reflection. He was a coach on the field. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for players that don't need to be motivated. Making millions of dollars. You're supposed to be playing a game that you love. If you're a great player, great players are great players. Now, do great players need to be put in the right positions? Yes, I agree with that. But just expecting a coach to, give you that rah-rah speech so you out there tackling and you out there doing the fundamentals of the game, to me, against Carolina, the team looked flat on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not going to put that on Raheem Morris. I'm not going to put that on Jimmy Lake. I'm going to put that on Grady Jarrett. I'm going to put that on AJ Terrell. I'm going to put that on Justin Simmons. I'm going to put that on Matthew Judon. I'm going to put that on the guys that are between those white lines, because they had something to play for Sunday, and they didn't come out looking like they were out there and had something to play for. They looked lethargic. That's a problem. That's a problem. I can't put that on the coach, because this is a new day. Yes, I can put that the coach needs to hold them accountable, but as a great player, if you're a great player, you should be accountable yourself. Like I mentioned, Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and great players, Matt Ryan didn't need a head coach to make him accountable. He was a guy that was the first one in the building, the last one to leave. He always was ready to play. He didn't wait on Mike Smith. He didn't wait on Dan Quinn. He didn't wait on the coaching staff to get him prepared to play. He came with a mindset. That's a mindset. That has nothing to do with coaching. I really feel like we're giving these players a pass when we say, well, the coaches should have had them prepared. The only time that I blame a coach is if the team looks unprepared or if the team is being out schemed. And that was the Denver game. I was hot with the coaching staff because they put them in bad situations. You got your guys playing 10 yards off the ball and they're throwing bubble screens. And I got 300 pounders running at AJ Terrell and running at my corners, D Alford. They are at their mercy at that point. They can't cut them low. They can't do anything. That's a coaching error. What we seen against the Panthers, that was a lack of effort. Let's just keep it real on the defensive side of the ball. That was a lack of effort. That wasn't coaching. That was guys not giving maximum effort. For whatever reason, I don't know if they were depressed because they lost in Washington. Whatever the reason was, they didn't come to play. When you let the Panthers score 44 points on you and they got a lot of backup wide receivers out there, guys that wouldn't be playing on other teams as starters, that's a you problem as a player, not just on the coaches. The offense looked ready. The offense did their job. They put up 38 points. At the end of the day, we got to be able to get a stop on the defensive side of the ball. It's multiple sides. There's the coaching, there's the offense, there's the defense, there's the special teams. So at the end of the day, I put that on the players. They weren't prepared to play. They didn't come out looking like they had the playoffs on the line. And let's see here. Shouts out to Dre Harrison. He says a coach that knew the defensive players the most, we let him walk to Jacksonville, bring back Ryan Nielsen. And I completely agree. Ryan Nielsen did a really, really good job. He did a really good job with this defense. But at the end of the day, he took the job in Jacksonville. He took the job in Jacksonville. So it is what it is. As much as I think that Ryan Nielsen should have, stayed, or we should have kept him or tried to keep him, he already was gone. He decided to go to Jacksonville. So it is what it is on that front. Let's see here. Andrew G says, if I'm wrong, I will come on y'all's show and admit it publicly, but I doubt I'm wrong. At the end of the day, it's what? It's January 7th. So if I'm wrong, I'll come back and say that I was wrong. I've been wrong before, and I'm big enough man to say I was wrong. I was wrong when I said keep Dan Quinn. When they kept Dan Quinn, I think for his 5th year, he started 0-5 and got fired. I was wrong. I thought Dan Quinn was a really good coach, but guess what? He was a really good coach, but he lost the locker room. Once the players start toning you out, just like they tuned out Arthur Smith, guys went deaf. What he was preaching, they were not listening anymore. The players was, he basically toning him out. And we seen that with that team. They were not listening to Dan Quinn anymore. After his 5th year, they needed a new voice in that locker room, and it showed. So I was wrong in that instance. But we'll see. I don't think that I'm wrong in this Raheem Morris situation. Everything that I've heard out of the locker room from Grady Jarrett, from Caden Ellis, these are leaders on team. Jesse Bates, all of these guys that I've been hearing, they're all backing Raheem Morris. Ray McLeod, everybody that I've heard that gave any type of speech going into the offseason, they talked about wanting to be here. They talked about the coaching staff. They believe in the coaching staff. Now, maybe that's all talk, but there's proof in the pudding. We're going to see next year. If you really want these coaches to stay, guess what? You'll play for them. Because if you don't play for them and you don't produce wins, all that talking, we believe in them, all that ain't going to mean nothing if y'all don't win. You don't win, he going to get fired regardless, whatever these guys are saying. So show me. At the end of the day, I can see better than I can hear. Show me. Don't tell me that you want him here. Show us in your play that he's coaching. He's telling you the right things. Show us in wins that he knows what he's doing. And Georgia Texas boy just said it right here. In year 1, Zach Robinson did better than Shanahan, Arthur Smith, and Ben Johnson. I don't know about Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson with the Lions, he was really good in his first year. But I agree with the rest. He definitely was better than Shanahan's first season. And Arthur Smith, he really didn't have as much weaponry to work with. So that's questionable as well. But I agree with you that Zach Robinson did well. As a first-time play caller, he called great plays. He just don't know how to set up his plays. He has to work on understanding the rhythm and flow of a football game. It's a time and a place to go 5 wide. It's not after you just get 2 first downs running the ball. And when you see the game is a physical style of game. The Panthers gave us no reason to try to throw the ball at all because they couldn't stop the run. So there's no reason to even try. When Ray McLeod, they threw that little shuttle screen to him or threw the ball to him and it bobbled up in the air and Mike Jackson of the Panthers picked it off. What that showed me was that was unnecessary. That play shouldn't even happen. But that was one of the plays in the game that flipped the game because the Falcons could have took a lead, they could have extended their lead at that point. But because we wanted to look pretty, we wanted to try to trick them, and we wanted to all of a sudden, let's just go 5 wide receivers and show Michael Penix's arm off. That's what happens when you make bad decisions. And Miss Maggie T in the building. What's going on, Maggie? Y'all make sure y'all go and hit that like and subscribe button at AFN as well. I appreciate you joining me. And let's see here. And there it is right there. He says Zach Robinson's first year, we went 8-9 with 2,000-yard receivers and 1,200 yards running back, 600, 800-yard third wide receiver, and 400 to 600 yards in tight end. Yeah, we did our thing. We were a top 10 offense. I think we were the 10th overall total offense. We were 10. So we put up points. We just didn't do it when we needed it. At the end of the day, Mad Mike always says this. K Styles always said this. We say this all the time on the heavy hitters. Can you get a stop when you need a stop? Can you score a touchdown when you need a touchdown? That's what matters. All of those rankings don't mean nothing. having the most sacks in the league don't mean nothing if your record don't show it. And that's the reason why, even though I hate this statement by Raheem Morris that stats are for losers, that's the thing that he always liked to say. I'm not a huge fan of that quote, quoting that. But what he means by that is, and Jimmy Lake said the same thing when we started getting those sacks. We're getting the sacks now, but we're losing games. Make that make sense. We were in the beginning, we were winning games. We were 6-3. We're not getting no sacks, just getting pressure. Then when we start actually getting sacks, we were losing games. That's what they mean by stats are for losers. Is that even sometimes when you putting up the stats don't mean anything if you're losing. Prime example of that is Joe Burrow right now for the Cincinnati Bengals. He had the most passing yards. I think he threw for like 5,000 yards or close to it, 40 touchdowns, did all of that. Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown, and the Bengals at home on the couch with us. So those stats didn't mean nothing. It was great for them in personal accolades, but as far as team success, it didn't do anything for their team. They still didn't make the playoffs with them putting up those gaudy numbers. And he says, Alberto says, hey, Jew, would you compare Michael Penix to Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson came into the league? I don't think that I would compare um, him to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson to me was more mobile, but I do think that he has a stronger arm than Russell Wilson. I actually think that Michael Penix has a chance to be better than Russell Wilson. I think that Russell Wilson was better at running and scrambling around because that's not something that Penix necessarily wants to do. But if you were to compare him, I really don't know if it's really anybody in the league that I really compare Michael Penix to because he has a really, really strong arm. I mean, his arm reminds me of Michael Vick, the way that he just throws the ball effortlessly and throws the ball with so much power. But it's not no one in the league currently that I can say like he reminds me of them. Because when I look at Michael Penix, even though he can scramble, I look at him as a pocket passer, just elite arm strength, elite accuracy. The only thing that he has to work on, and that's something that they talked about, was layering the football. So knowing how to float the ball up. And that's one thing that I will say, Russell Wilson and Penix, what things that they do alike, both of them throw a really good deep ball down the field. If you see the way that Russell Wilson throws the deep ball, and if you see Michael Penix, or you go look at his college tape with Washington, he throws a really good deep ball down the field. We didn't see a lot of deep shots down the field this year because he wasn't on one accord yet with Mooney. He hasn't developed that chemistry, but you've seen a little bit against the Panthers. If you've seen that play when he threw the ball to Ray McCloud down the field, he understands how to put touch on the ball, but I think sometimes even now, sometimes Michael Penix throws the ball with a little bit too much velocity, and that's the reason that ball bounced up in the air when Ray McCloud tried to catch it because he throws a fastball. That's why I say it puts me in the mind of Michael Vick. If you remember Michael Vick early on with the Falcons, everything was a bullet, it seemed like. He never really threw the ball with no touch. And I think that that's something that Michael Penix needs to work on, is throwing the ball with touch. You don't always have to throw the ball, even though you can throw it 100 miles an hour. Sometimes you need to take some pace off of the ball, especially depending on who you're throwing it to. If I'm throwing the ball to a fullback, I don't need to throw the ball with that much zip because most fullbacks don't have natural hands. So they're going to try to catch it with their body. That same thing with Ray McCloud. To me, Ray McCloud doesn't have natural hands. If you've seen the ones that he dropped, it's because Michael Penix hit him right in the chest, but he threw the ball with so much pace and so much, velocity that ball was just popping up. It happened at least 2 or 3 times Sunday when Ray McCloud tried to catch it with his body. That ball bounced off his pads. That's why they tell you to catch it with your hands. You put you catch it with your body, then it's gonna pop up. So that's why I say he got to learn how to start putting a little bit of pace on the ball. Everything don't need to be, some touch on the ball. Everything don't have to be thrown at 100 miles an hour. Now, sometimes you're going to need to throw that bullet. Like when he threw that ball to Kyle Pitts for that game time play against Washington, because he was throwing that ball in a small window, he needed to put some zip on it. That ball that he threw similar to Drake London, he threw a similar route to Drake London in this last game where he threw it between 3 defenders and Drake scored that second touchdown. At times, you're going to need to, put some zip on it. But again, he showed us even throwing the ball down the field. If you look at the play where he threw the ball up, as I've been saying all of these years since we've had Drake London, to throw the ball up and give Drake London the chance. When he threw that ball at the end of the half, when he threw it twice to Drake and Drake was able to go up and get it in the corner of the end zone, that's what I've been talking about with when we had Desmond Ritter. When I was like, Desmond Ritter don't understand, throw the ball up. When you throwing the ball to these big physical Drake London, a 50-50 ball to him is like a 90-10 ball, meaning 90% he gonna catch it, 10% the defender has a chance. And I really feel like that's why you seen on Sunday. One thing I noticed about Penix that makes him very smart, if you notice on Sunday, he kept throwing to his number one target, which is Drake London. Because he knew Mooney was out, he trusted Drake London in a lot of those situations. When he needed a play to be made, he went to his number one target. And that was my biggest problem all year long with Kirk Cousins. It's like, go to your number one guy. There's nothing wrong with Ray McCloud. He can make plays. He can make catches. He made some crucial catches throughout the season. But when the money's on the line and the money's on the table, you got to go to your big name guys, the guys that's making the big bucks to do that. And let's see here. Let me scroll down a little bit because I got a super chat. I got 2 super chats. My fault, y'all. I'm rambling. Hold on a second. So Jared J says, do we move on from Alford and Grant free agents? I would not go away from Alford. Grant, he is up in the air because you have DeMarco Hellams that can replace him. D. Alford, they raved about him all season, and people consistently, I don't know why the fans don't like D. Alford. I think it comes from that play where he was looking all like he got lost in that Minnesota Vikings game, and now people are like hating on him. But D. Alford is actually a really good nickel, and you need a good nickel back in the NFL because a lot of teams play 3 wides. So Alford to me shouldn't be replaceable. I would give him a new contract. Grant, I would let him go possibly, unless you just want to bring him back on like a 1-year prove it deal. But the reason I say that I would get rid of Grant is because they kind of phased him out. As you heard Mike talk about, they phased players out. We didn't really see Richie Grant hardly at all during this season. We didn't see him a whole lot. So at this point, I think you can kind of let him phase out at this point. I will let Grant kind of phase out unless they just really like him because you have DeMarco Hellams that can replace him. But D. Alford, I don't see anybody on this team that can replace D. Alford. Who's gonna take his spot? Unless you're gonna put Clark Phillips on the outside, on the nickel. Let him play the nickel. But I believe we still have, we're losing Mike Hughes. So I really think that Clark Phillips should be the guy that you move outside and let him be the replacement for Mike Hughes. So I would keep D. Alford personally. But I appreciate the super chat, man. The 199 super chat. I thank you. And let me scroll down here. And shouts out to Johnson Clay. He says for the baby shower, $5 super chat. I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate that. The super chat. Let me see here. But let me scroll up some. I know I've been ranting. And shouts out to Mike. He says, send you some super chat love. Gonna need it with the baby coming. I appreciate it, bro. I appreciate y'all, man. But let me scroll up a little bit because I know I've been ranting and raving and I missed some of you guys' comments. So let's see. And Beasley says coaching can change a franchise. Look at sports history. I agree. I completely agree. Having a good coach can change a franchise, but I feel like we're not patient enough to give a coach a chance. What New England did, bad organizations fire coaches after 1 year. The Patriots, I was very shocked to see them fire Gerard Mayo in his first year with no pieces. Like, how are you supposed to become a winning organization that fast? Think about the Houston Texans when they first became an expansion team, and Houston, they brought a team back to Houston. Nobody, at least anybody in their right mind, was not expecting the Houston Texans to win a Super Bowl in their first year. I know I wasn't. I wasn't expecting anything from them. It was the same thing this year with Raheem Morris. Yes, we had high expectations because they said outrun the South. This is a playoff roster. And they got close, but they still failed. It was a failure. I'm not making excuses. This year was a failure. I admit it. This team was the best roster in the NFC South. They should have made the playoffs. You were 6-3. You had a chokehold on the lead, but they let it slip through their fingers at the end of the day. But that doesn't mean we need to fire everybody. That's just my personal opinion. But y'all can get mad at the messenger. Y'all can kill the messenger, but that's why I stand with it. And it's not because I want to make excuses for the man. I'm looking at common sense. We could have fired Dan Quinn after going 8-8 his first season and them collapsing after being 5-0. But if we did that, 2016 never happens. So people that want to forget about 2016 or people that want to act like Dan Quinn was a bad coach, Dan Quinn was one of the best coaches in the Atlanta Falcons organization. One of the best coaches. He had a stranglehold on the Super Bowl. He had Brady and Belichick down 28-3. That's how good he was coaching. That's how well that coaching staff was coaching. That's how good those players was. I consistently say the 2016 Falcons roster was better than the Patriots 2016 roster. The better team did not win that day. We got out coached. We got out, muscled. We got outplayed in that game, point blank in the period. The blame can go around to every single player. You can blame D. Alford, not D. Alford. You can blame Robert Alford for dropping his second pick of the game, and it goes through his hands. And Julian Edelman somehow on 2 to 3 people on top of players, and the ball about to hit the ground, he somehow makes a juggling catch. You can blame Devontae Freeman for missing the block on Hightower when he was blitzing. It's a lot of blame that can go around, but that's my thing. In a lot of these situations, there's the blame can get sliced up and diced up to a lot of different people, and that's the problem. Even with this season, if it was just Raheem Morris, I could say fire him. But looking at all of the stuff that happened throughout this season, Younghoe Koo missing field goals at the wrong time, guys dropping balls, guys fumbling, Ray McCloud fumbling the ball in a crucial moment, us losing to the New Orleans Saints, we had no business, missing all those field goals. Kirk Cousins throwing 4 interceptions. Raheem Morris didn't tell him to throw the ball, to the other team, just throw it up in the crowd. That's what I'm saying. So it's easy to just say, fire the coach. That's easy. That's easy. Anybody can do that. But do we want to be the Cleveland Browns, where every year we're searching for a new coach? Because it looked like every 2 to 3 years, the Cleveland Browns is firing and hiring. Every year they're looking for a new quarterback. We got those teams that recycle, just keep changing their coach over and over and over and over and over again. Don't get them nowhere. The teams that you see win consistently are the teams that have that continuity. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they done had like 3 coaches their whole existence, or 4 coaches. The New England Patriots for 2 decades. You had Bill Belichick there. You had, that coaching staff pretty much intact majority of that time he was there. To me, those are the teams that are successful. The Philadelphia Eagles, they don't change coaches like that. You see them change here and there, but Andy Reid, when he was there a long time. Majority of the teams that are losing consistently are teams that don't have no type of infrastructure. They don't have no continuity. They don't know who they are. They have no identity. It's just a bunch of changing the guards, giving the no stability for the players whatsoever to develop anything. You can't develop anything if you're changing all the time. You got to allow these guys to develop. That's the problem. We don't want to wait for the development. Let's just be honest. We want the instantaneous win now, but that does not happen consistently. The Lions right now, that was a development. If you look at Dan Campbell, go look at Dan Campbell, how long he's been the coach of the Lions. Go look at the first year he was there. He didn't win his first year. Dan Campbell came to a team that was 0-16 that he took over, and they didn't win. He lost for like the first 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. Then he went like 8-8, I think, the year before they made a deep playoff push last year. So they just now are having success, but he's been there 3, 4, 5 years now. So at the end of the day, it doesn't happen as fast as we think. We just look at what's happening now and say, Dad, the Lions winning, they won quick. No, they didn't win quick. They had those down seasons, just like we missed the playoffs, that disappointment. I remember the last year that Aaron Rodgers was with the Packers. They played the Lions on Sunday Night Football, and they lost to the Lions. I think it was in Lambeau. And that was Aaron Rodgers' last game. He lost to the Lions and Dan Campbell. But Dan Campbell and that team missed the playoffs in that season. They went 8-8, I think it was. And William Amy says, move on from D. Alford and Mike Hughes. He can't start. No, like I said, keep D. Alford. Mike Hughes, you can move on from Mike Hughes. He's okay, but you can move on. Now, if you want to bring him back on a short deal because he's reasonable, Mike Hughes played well enough this year to keep him. But I really feel like you need to still draft and develop. So I would draft another corner. I don't necessarily think that you necessarily need to bring Mike Hughes back unless it's on a reasonable contract. And Robert Ponder says Raheem definitely lost the fan base. I definitely think that the fan base is heated, but I don't think that he can't get them back. He's lost them for now, but let this team be a winning team next year. He'll get them back, but it goes back to what Matt Ryan said when he brought Matt Ryan in to speak to the team in training camp or before training camp when he was first hired. Matt Ryan told it, you got to earn it. Falcons fans want to see you win. We're not going to just necessarily, we'll support you. The diehard fans are going to support you no matter what, win or lose. But those fair weather fans, those fans that just want to see success, you got to earn it. You got a lot of season ticket holders that don't want to come to see losers. Let's just be honest. They don't want to do it. If I was a season ticket holder, I'm going regardless. Whether you're on 16 or not, I'm still going to watch you play because I love the game of football. But the average fan that's not a diehard necessarily, they're not going to come to see a losing product or waste their time on a Sunday when they can do something else. If I already know that y'all look, y'all trash, I'm not going to come waste my time. I'm going to sell my tickets to somebody else. And what's going on? Keith Simmons says, family, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me. And let's see. And y'all can start dropping if you got more questions. I'm just scrolling through. And Keith says, we were ranked 6th in total offense. Kurt fell off 5 games. Imagine the whole season with Michael Penix. Exactly. That's my point exactly. You got a top 10 offense. You pretty much set on offense. You don't really need to tailor anything other than Zach Robinson just needs to understand when he needs to run the ball, when he needs to throw the ball, situational football. Outside of that, we good. The defense is where I see the biggest issues. We couldn't get a stop on Sunday. We put up 38 points with a quarterback playing only in his third game. A rookie playing in his third game put up 300 yards, and he was making it look easy. So you give him a defense that can get stops and get him multiple possessions on short fields, you probably put up 50 points in that game if the defense gets any type of stops and plays with any type of aggression in that last game. And there it is right here. The issue was the 2 rookie coordinators. I completely agree. Raheem Morris gets a slice of that blame pie too, though. But inexperience is what we seen. We saw too much inexperience, guys not knowing what to do and when to do it. And there go man Mike says 5,000 yards sitting at home. Make it make sense. Exactly. That don't mean nothing. Them stats don't mean nothing when you're at home. And nobody going to remember that 5,000 yards but diehard Bengals fans. Ain't nobody going to talk about how many yards he threw for because it didn't lead to nothing. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, he made the Pro Bowl. Yeah, he might be an all-pro. That helps his bank account when he goes to, debate about his contract. But outside of that, it don't do anything for the Bengal fans. The Bengal fans is just as sad as we are. They went on a 5-game winning streak down the stretch. So they started weak and finished strong. We were the opposite of the Bengals. We started off strong and ended weak. They started off weak and ended strong and still didn't make it. They was on a 5-game winning streak and missed the playoffs. So we in the same spot. And let's see here. And Corey Gear says, yeah, Penny's going to be a top 5 quarterback sooner than later. I mean, the sky's the limit for the kid, period. The sky's the limit. I don't want to put no limits on Michael Penix. What I seen out of him, his poise, him never looking like the moment is too big. That's what, to me, what stood out about Michael Penix. What I love about Michael Penix is his ability to be cool, calm, and collected. He was just cool. In the pocket, you never really seen him looking like he was getting frazzled. Even when he got hit, he never looked frazzled. He was out there moving around, operating, but he never looked like he was in a panic. He never looked like he was in a rush. He played the game at his own speed and didn't look like the game was moving too fast for him at any times. For him to make that throw in Washington to Pitts on fourth down, cool, calm, and collected. So that's something that you can't teach, is just being clutch. It seemed like he just got that clutch gene in him that for whatever reason he doesn't get frazzled. He doesn't allow the moment to get too big for him. It seemed like his heart rate won't raised up at all. It was like he was playing in college again. He was just back there sitting in the pocket, throwing dimes. And right there, John says, I felt that our receivers couldn't handle the hot balls Penix threw. Yeah, they couldn't. That's why I say he got to learn how to take some of that zip off the ball. Sometimes it's necessary, but at some point you got to know who you're throwing the ball to. But these are professionals. They got to catch the ball at the end of the day. I'm not making no excuses for Ray McLeod. Stop catching the ball with your body and catch it with your hands. You don't have to worry about the ball popping up. But I do think if he takes a little bit of zip off that ball, it'll help. It'll help the guys as far as those drops. Because I seen Drake London drop a couple of them, and you rarely see Drake London drop the ball. So I really feel like they're trying to get used to, okay, we went from catching the ball from Kirk Cousins, who throw a softer ball, to somebody that's throwing the ball 100 miles an hour. Let's see here. Zaire Lippman says, we just need to make sure we don't have a Matty Ice repeat and have a quarterback that can move the ball, but the defense can't hold when it matters. We have to get younger and more athletic in our front seven. I agree. I completely agree with this full statement. That's why I was talking about the Jared versus. That's why I was talking about what's the one kid out of Alabama? He plays with Minnesota, Dallas Turner. Having them guys on the edge, especially if you want your guys dropping off in the flats and running down the field. You don't want Matthew Judon chasing a running back or a tight end sprinting down the field. You don't want to see that. I don't want to see Epic Katie dropping in coverage. I don't. That's not what these guys are for. They're pass rushers. You might say they're defensive ends more than they are linebackers. Matthew Judon is really a defensive end. He can play outside linebacker and stand up in a 2-point stance, but he's at his best just going to get the quarterback. New England didn't ask him to run 12 to 10, 15, 20 yards down the field to cover a running back or cover somebody. If he ever dropped anywhere, he was dropping in the flat. That was it. That was all he did in New England. I never seen him running down the field trying to cover somebody. And there it go right here. It'll be good to see Helms and Trice healthy again. Exactly. We got Trice, and Trice is one of those guys that's a little bit more twitchy, but I don't want to see Trice running down the field chasing a running back. So that's why I said that they're going to have to make some adjustments. When Mike talked about the changes, this team is going to have to make the proper adjustments. And that's one of the adjustments I want to see. I don't want to see none of my defensive ends or linebackers chasing the running back down the field. If you're going to drop them in coverage anywhere, it better be dropping in a spot, like in a zone where they're dropping into a spot, into a throwing lane, not chasing somebody man to man. And that play where Judon was chasing that running back down the field last week, I think it was Miles Sanders or one of their running backs, when he scored that touchdown or had that big play down the field, that was just a bad scheme whatsoever. When I seen it, they showed the replay. It's like, why is Judon running 50 yards down the field trying to chase this guy? Like he gonna win that matchup. Make that make sense. And Keith Simmons says, hey fam, they not cutting Kirk. No, I don't know what they're gonna do with Kirk. I've seen rumors that they're not gonna cut him, but I think that they're probably gonna have to cut him. What I would ask Kirk to do, if he wants to stay as the backup, you're gonna have to take a pay cut. You're gonna have to take a pay cut. That's the only way that Kirk Cousins gonna stay with the Falcons. I'm not keeping Kirk Cousins on this roster. Have to give him a $10 million bonus, which I think they owe him. I'm not doing that. So I can see him getting cut because they owe him like a $10 million bonus. I think if he's not cut by like June 1st or something crazy like that, is one of the things that I saw. So in that instance, do you really want to give your backup quarterback that kind of bonus? I wouldn't. Just to be honest with you. So it just depends on if Kirk wants to stay here, he gonna have to take a pay cut, and he gonna have to they're gonna have to adjust that contract. But if he wants to start and he still wants to play, or he thinks that he's still starter quality, then he might want to go somewhere else. Because Penix, he not getting that job back from Penix. After what we saw, he can hang it up. He can forget it. Unfortunately, Kirk's a really good guy. I thank him for what he did for the team for the time that he was the starter. But at this point, if Kirk is smart, I possibly would stay as the backup, to be honest with you guys, unless he just wants to play. But if at any point, it's always good to have a good backup, because if an injury hits, he might get that Nick Foles moment where, God forbid, knock on wood, I don't want to see Penix get hurt, but God forbid if he happens to get nicked up at some point, if you in the playoff picture or you right there, Kirk is already familiar with these guys. So it's always a good thing to have two quality starting quarterbacks. Let's just be honest, because this is the NFL. Injuries are going to happen. We can bet your bottom dollar on that. Guys are going to get hurt. So having Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins is not a guy that's all eyes on me, a diva type quarterback, if he wants to stay and he's willing to adjust that contract, but it's more feasible for the Falcons, why not? Keep him on a team. Shoot, I would keep him. At least you got a quality backup if you need somebody to come in for a game or two, and possibly win you a couple games. And Maggie just said it right there. Yeah, Kirk will be the backup. And she said it right. Nobody wants to take on that contract. I completely agree with that. But I think from what I heard, like if the Falcons cut Kirk Cousins, then he can go to another team and play like on the vet minimum. So it'll be similar to what the Steelers did with Russell Wilson. So Russell Wilson had that big contract with Denver, but Denver cut him. The only problem with cutting him is they had to take on that huge salary cap hit. So that's the only reason why I think that the Falcons may be reluctant to cut Kirk Cousins, is because do they want to eat that dead cap money that's going to affect us from being able to sign other players. Now, you can spread that out a little bit, but it's still a big chunk that you're going to have to eat. So we might just say it might be more feasible for us just to keep him as the backup. But I'm not too sure how that's going to play out. That's going to be in the months to come, in the weeks to come. We're going to see what, after he talks with the team, after Kirk talks with his agent and the team, discuss that with him, at that point, they'll make a decision. Court Gear says one of the coordinators got to go. Both can't stay. I'm keeping both, Corey. The only way I'm not keeping both coordinators here is if Raheem Morris decides that he's going to take over the defensive play call. I don't want to bring in a whole new defensive philosophy personally, or a whole defensive coach. The only way I'm firing one of the coordinators is if Jerry Gray's taking over the defensive play calls, if Raheem Morris is taking over the play calls. I don't want to bring an outsider in to take over and change the whole defensive philosophy. That's only going to create more confusion. Personally, that's just what I personally feel. I feel like you're going to set a lot of the players back if you do that. So the offense, I'm not even touching that. Zach Robinson did a good job. He just needs to understand situations, period. And look, there go John Sinclair again, says that Dan Quinn is coaching the playoff team right now. That's why I say that Dan Quinn is a good coach. What did Dan Quinn do that made him a better coach than when he was with the Falcons? He sat back, he assessed what he did wrong. He looked himself in the mirror after he got fired with the Falcons. He went back to the drawing board. He started to add a little bit more man-to-man concepts, stopped playing so much cover three, started to add some blitz concepts, got the defensive coordinator job with Dallas, did really, really well, and now he's getting his second opportunity with the Commanders, and he's making the most of it. So that's why I say he was a good coach. Sometimes your voice just not being heard where you're at. His voice was falling on deaf ears, and he just needed a new scenery. That's all it was. He learned from his mistakes. And engine number 9 says, "What's up, Jew? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me." And there it is right there. Who could honestly, who could have predicted Kirk to fall off like that? Nobody. God, God himself. That's the only person that knew that Kirk Cousins was gonna fall off because I didn't see it coming. He went from throwing for 500 yards in October to falling off a cliff in November, December. Who seen that coming? I know I didn't. And Michael says, Jew, what's going on, man? Fire in the chat. Put some fire in the chat. I appreciate it, man. And Andrew G says, Jew Raheem is none of those coaches. He's not even a league in their league with those coaches. We're gonna find out. I mean, Raheem Morris, he done won 2 Super Bowls as a coordinator. So let's see what he can do. Dan Quinn, he didn't have a resume neither as a head coach until he came with the Falcons. Before he was with the Falcons, he was a defensive coordinator with the Seahawks. He had did nothing on his own. And then he came to the Falcons, had his first season when he went 8-8. And Mike called him Rock Quinn for Raheem. He says he's just like Dan Quinn. So hopefully this is a pattern. Hopefully the pattern is you go 8-8 or 8-9 your first year. You win 8 games. The second year we went 11-5. So maybe next year Raheem could follow in his protege's footsteps, and hopefully we can or his mentor's footsteps, and hopefully he can, follow in the same breath. Hopefully the pattern is 8 wins, Super Bowl. This time let's finish the deal. That's it. And Tony Hall says, hello, Jew 2K. What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me. Let's see. Corey Gear says, do they draft an edge or a middle linebacker? Depends who on the board. I haven't started looking at the college, prospects just yet. But if I'm the Falcons, I'm doing both. Now, you guys know why I stand on it. You always draft trenches. I'm not taking no linebacker unless he's just that good in the first round. You rarely see linebackers drafted in the first round, middle linebackers especially. You can find inside linebackers later. But if it's a guy out there that's really good that you think is worthy of it, I would start with the edge though. Edge, defensive tackle, those are the positions I'm looking at first that can pressure the quarterback, stop the run. I really feel like in the later round, second, third, fourth, you can find linebackers. But we need a linebacker that's athletic enough that can run sideline to sideline. What we are missing on this team is a Foye Oluokun. We're missing a Deion Jones. That's what we're missing on this team. We're missing a Fred Warner from the 49ers. That's what this team needs. They need a linebacker that's more agile, that can cover, but that can do everything. So if we can get us a consistent, like middle linebacker that's more can play in space, because that's not what Caden Ellis necessarily does. He can play in space, but Caden Ellis' best attribute is attacking the line of scrimmage. So that's why I'd rather see him more of just a pure pass rusher, wreak havoc on the line of scrimmage. Less covering and dropping in the coverage and things of that nature. And Jonathan, I think I already answered this question, but I'll say it again. He says, Drew, do you think we make any changes to the coaching staff or roll what we got? Roll with what you have. Stay put. I don't see a reason to change at this point. I really feel like if you stay put, this Falcons team I mentioned earlier in the show, this can be a 2015, 2016 type of year where we went 8-8 in 2015. Guys got comfortable with the scheme. Coaches and the coaching staff grew as far as they made some adjustments. They brought in a few impact players in the draft, in the free agency. Next thing you know, the team hit it. Next year, they was in the Super Bowl. Went from 8 wins to 11 wins. That's what I want to see, improvement. We don't want to see no regression. That's why I say next year has to be a year that that we play better, we make the playoffs, and we win more games. If we don't see any improvement, then we could possibly see Raheem Morris and his coaching staff get fired. Because to me, the expectation next year is making the playoffs, period. It's not just getting better, it's making the playoffs. That's the bar. And Keith says, hey, do you think Pitts shows up in a contract year? That would be great so we can franchise him and trade him. We need cap for Drake and Bijan. I think that they're going to trade Pitts, to be honest with you guys. And if it was me, I would trade Pitts. I like him a lot, excuse me, on this team, but I think that they don't use him enough unless that's going to be one of the adjustments that we see from year one of Zach Robinson to year two, that they understand, okay, we're gonna have to use Pitts more. And now that we got Penix, we've seen that Penix is not afraid to make some of those tight window throws. He'll be able to stretch the field with Pitts. Okay, we can use Pitts on this roster. But if you're gonna use Pitts the same way you used him this year, where he's only getting targeted 1 or 2 times a game, let him go. You're wasting talent at this point. You're wasting too much talent. He's way too talented to only be getting 2 looks a game. He has to be a guy that's one of your focal points. When we talk about the big three on this offense should be, as far as guys that are receiving, should be Pitts, London, Bijan. Those are the 3 guys that should be seeing the most targets. And then Mooney is somewhere in that third to fourth range as well. But Ray McLeod's, the you know, the Warners, all of those guys that were getting opportunities, nothing wrong with those guys, but their target should go down. It's no reason why Ray McLeod should be having more receiving yards than Kyle Pitts or more targets. That doesn't make sense. Unless that's just how his offense is built. That it's 3 wide receivers and we don't have space, or we're not going to use Pitts. If that's the case, let Pitts go and go get you a defensive impact player, or go get you a high draft pick where you can take an impact player. Don't waste Pitt's time. So right now we're wasting Pitt's talent. He has way too much talent, and he should be having a way bigger impact on these football games than 1 and 2 attempts or targets a game. That's crazy. He should be a top 3 tight end in the league when it comes to targets, touchdowns, receiving yards. He's that good. We've seen it in his rookie year. That's why when I hear the Pitts talk, my ears are deaf to any Pitt slander, because that dude can play. He just is not getting the opportunities. Let's just be honest. Your numbers are going to go down if you don't get no targets. That's just how it works. And it says, knowing that we only have 4 picks, if you were GM, who would you trade? Pitts. that was a perfect question to come right behind that. Pitts would be the guy that's getting traded. Pitts would be the guy, because we're not using him. And it seems like he doesn't fit this offense. Because if you look at the offense, the way we're running it, our offense is similar to the Rams. That's where they're cut off of the Sean McVay tree. That's where Zach Robinson came from. He was with the Rams. He's running a similar offense to Puka Nacua. The other kid that they have over there, I forget his name now, number 10, that plays over there with the Cooper Cup. They run a lot of, they had Robert Woods at one point. There are 3 wide receiver spread offense type, pistol, zone run scheme. They're not really big on the tight ends. They had Higbee over there with the Rams at one point, but they're not big on throwing the ball to their tight ends. They're big on having those 2 wide receivers that gets most of the targets, and they're big on giving the ball to the running backs. So in that case, let Pitts go. Don't even waste his time. Let him go somewhere where they're going to actually use him and make him a focal point. Pitts needs to be on a team where he's either the 1 or the 2. He can't be way down on the totem pole, 4th, 5th option. In that point, what we talking about? And my boy Mad Mike says 52 people in the chat. Hit the like button. Yeah, hit the like button for your boy. The likes is free. Hit the like button if y'all enjoy the content. I appreciate you guys. And Will Mamie said here that Raheem ain't it. Well, we're going to have to find out, aren't we? Because I don't think he's going nowhere. We're going to find out if he it. I mean, I don't care about his record with Tampa Bay. I want to see what he can do with this roster he got. This roster is better than the Tampa Bay roster that he had when he was the first time head coach with the Bucks. This is the best roster that he's ever coached as a head coach. And it's only going to get better. There's no reason why Penix won't be better in year 2. There's no reason why Drake won't be better in year 3. There's no reason why all of these guys are going to get better. They're only going to get better as the years move forward. So I really feel like we're going to be able to take advantage of a lot of that these guys are going to continue to improve. We just got to see the coaches make the next step. The next step is don't do what you did this year. Learn from your mistakes. You messed up this year with the timeouts. You messed up with not making the proper adjustments. Now, next year, instead of playing 10 yards off the ball for your corners in the first 6 to 7 to 8 games, play press man the first week of the season, blitz the first week of the season, be more aggressive early on, and maybe we see what we did in the back half as far as sacks. We had like 30 some or 20 some sacks over the last 5 or 6 games at the end of the season. Start the season like that next year. Then you may end up having a better overall year. But we got to learn from the mistakes. That's the problem. It ain't just getting rid of them. No, that ain't the way you handle it. Take advantage. Getting rid of them is the easy thing to do. Trying to fix it is the right thing to do. Try to fix where you made the mistake. Because if you hit the reset button, don't expect to win next year. That's just how I stand with it. If you clean house, expect to be another 2 years to be waiting to be in the playoffs. That's how my mindset is. Don't expect the guy to come in his first year and make the playoffs, make a deep playoff run. That rarely happens. There's only one Jim Harbaugh. There's only a few coaches that can snap their finger, boom, and get you back to winning. There's only a few, and it ain't a lot. I can't think of, if I count on my 10 hands, how many coaches, you look that up, how many coaches make a deep playoff run in their first year, first as a head coach of a new organization. The numbers are not good. The percentages are not good. And where the goal is not, for me, the goal is not even just making the playoffs. The goal is winning the Super Bowl at the end of the day. That's why I feel like we also making a mistake. Yes, get into the playoffs, give you a chance to win the Super Bowl, but the goal should be to win a Super Bowl. So changing head coaches is not going to get the Falcons into a Super Bowl next year. It's not happening. And let's see here. And there you go. He says the Falcon. That's not what the Falcon said. The Falcon said that they are keeping all options open. Yep. That's what we should do. And I think he's referring to the Kirk Cousins situation. They're keeping all options open, which they should. But I really feel like what all options open means is we going to see if Kirk Cousins is willing to be flexible. If he's in there demanding, I want this, then good luck. I don't think it's going to work in his favor because he has a no trade clause. But guess what? The Falcons are not going to just release him just because he wants to be released. The Falcons are going to try to do what's in the best business for us. Whatever's going to work best for the Falcons as an organization. So if that means cutting you, if that means trading you, whatever it is best in the best interest of the Falcons is what's going to happen. Ghost Pepper says Judah has been in coverage during there all year. Exactly. And the man, we wonder why the man ain't getting no sacks because he's running 20 yards down the field with a running back. Make that make sense. He ain't going to sack the quarterback chasing a running back. I'm going to promise you that. And Man Mike says Falcons will not pay a backup $20 million. Exactly. I agree. They shouldn't. That'll be called being dumb. We're not gonna pay him that kind of money. He gonna get the Russell Wilson treatment. If he want to be a starter, he gonna get cut or traded, and then he gonna play on the vet minimum for another team. We're gonna have to do whatever we need to do. With that being said, I'm about to get ready to wrap it up. Let me just scroll down a little bit here. And Raymond Elder says Raheem is a failure. Not firing him this year is just delaying the inevitable. I don't know about that though. We could have said that about Dan Quinn. Did you think the same way about Dan Quinn when he was 8-8? I don't like to make knee-jerk reactions. I don't like that. Me personally. That's my humble opinion, Raymond. I don't believe in knee-jerk reactions. I believe in wait and see. That's what Mike always says. That's what K-Style, that's what we always say. K-Styles always say we don't know, and I adopted that same approach of wait and see. I don't like to make assumptions. Assumptions are usually lead to bad things when you assume that somebody can't do something. I don't want to make that assumption. I want to give the person a fair chance because this is my thing. Okay, you fire Raheem Morris. Let's just go down that alleyway real quick before I close. You fire Raheem Morris. You bring in a new coach this year and they do worse or they do the same. Do they deserve another opportunity? That would be my question for everybody in the chat. Before I close, somebody answer that question for me. If you bring in a new head coach, you fire everybody that's currently on this coaching staff, and then you bring in a new head coach. I just want to hear in the chat how long do you give that next coach? How long is his leash? How long is it? I don't care if they're a first time head coach. I don't care about none of that. What I'm asking is, do you treat them the same way? What's the um expectations for whoever's still watching? What's the expectations? If you fire, we're gonna just play the devil's advocate. If you fire Raheem Morris right now, you fire everybody on the staff, you bring in a whole new coaching staff. What is the expectations next year? Anybody can answer it. Is it playoffs? Is it winning more than 8 games? What's the expectation? Because whoever steps foot in this Atlanta Falcons organization as the next head coach, they're going to have a good roster as well. Probably a better roster than we had this year because you got a more mature Penix, more mature players, and Bijan, all them guys that's been here, Drake that's been developing. So what is the mark or what is the bar raised to? And that's why I say it's not fair to fire Raheem Morris. I'm not defending the man. I'm defending common sense. If you fire him, are you going to become that David Tepper of the Carolina Panthers, where he's firing coaches left and right? Every year he's firing a new head coach or looking for a new head coach. Can you develop a winning culture that way, where you're firing and hiring every year? Can you win that way? Personally, I don't think so. And there you go, right there. Mike just answered it. 4 to 6 wins tops if you fire Raheem Morris. Exactly. So we right back in that same system, chasing our tail around like a dog chasing his tail, because you're not going nowhere. If you fire Raheem Morris, you'll feel good. We all feel good. Yes, we fired him. We'll throw a party. He's out of here. But for those players, now they got to learn a whole new philosophy. Now this new coach that comes in, he might not like the players that Raheem Morris have already brought in. So you're doing the same thing, basically, is what I'm saying. You're not really changing anything. Let's see. GH says Raheem honestly deserves another chance to prove he has learned from his mistakes of this year. That's my point. And that's just an opinion. When he says 4 to 6 wins, Raymond Raymond Elder says 4 to 6 wins, Mike. Raymond, how many do you think? I just want to get your personal opinion. I'm not attacking nobody. I just want to know what would, let me ask you this, Raymond, what would be your bar for the next head coach? Because what I'm trying to say is it has to be fair. We have to make it fair. We're gonna make it an even playing field. If we bring in a new head coach next year and they do worse than 8 and 9 with the same roster or better, at that point, you got to fire that next person. That's what we said with Desmond Ritter. If the next person don't get the job done, that's what we kept saying. We got to have some type of standard. So the standard is playoffs. We can't say the next coach that comes in, well, we're going to give them another chance if they don't do well. But we didn't want to do the same thing for Raheem Morris because that don't make sense. Personally, to me, that doesn't make sense. So I'm saying, like, what it would be the expectation? There it is right there. No, you can't. A new coach means a new scheme, and they have to learn. Exactly. Well, Amy says Pete Carroll. So what would be Pete Carroll's expectations? Because we know as Falcons fans, we have high expectations. And there it is right here. Yes, players don't like change. There's not they're not sticking around for consistent changes. It's not happening. Exactly. You keep changing coaches. Guess what Jesse Bates gonna say? I'm out. I want out of here. Trade me. All these guys, once they start seeing that it's a circus, why do you think right now Max Crosby is like, I want out of Las Vegas with the Raiders? Because they consistently show that they're inept. They want to fire coaches. They want to get rid of all of their good players. You traded Devontae Adams. When this a circus, good players don't like that. When Dan Quinn was here, the reason Dan Quinn was there as long as he was is because guys like Julio Jones was vouching for him. Guys like Matt Ryan was vouching for him. When your team leaders are speaking out saying that they want a certain guy to stay in place and you consistently make changes as upper management, what that does is ruffle the feathers of the players, the good players, the players that know how to win, or guys that really want to win. Guys that just want to collect a paycheck don't really care. The guys that just want to get paid, they don't really care about winning. They down for whatever. But the guys that understands what it takes to get to the next level, Grady Jarrett's played in the Super Bowl. Jesse Bates has played in the Super Bowl. Grady Jarrett has played in the Super Bowl. Jake Matthews has played in the Super Bowl. A lot of these guys that has played and went to the highest level may not have won a Super Bowl, but has been on winning teams. Most of those guys that have been on those winning teams were not in organizations that were changing coaches like draws. Just every year we flipping the page, hitting the reset button. That does not work. It just doesn't work. That's why I said it. Y'all, a lot of people are not going to like to hear what I'm saying, but it's the truth. Go look it up. I don't know a team in the league right now that's changing coaches over and over again. You know why the Chiefs are successful? Because they keep most of their coaching staff there. Andy Reid is the offensive coordinator, head coach. Steve Spagnuolo is the defensive coordinator. I think they've been together since they've been in Kansas City. They've been there at least 5 to 6 to 7 years at this point. Andy Reid's been in Kansas City a really long time. Steve Spagnuolo, his defensive coordinator, ain't moved nowhere. Steve Spagnuolo could have left and went and got a head coaching job somewhere. But the reason he's staying where he is because he know that they have a winning formula. So it ain't no reason for him to try to leave. He's staying put because it's the continuity there. He knows what to expect. He has the players know what to expect. There's not a bunch of changes being made consistently. The guys know what the identity of the team is. Those are the teams that consistently win. And that's the whole point of this live. It's not to protect Raheem Morris. It's, do we want to be a winning organization or not? Do we want to build something? When you build something, you build a house, it has a foundation, and it takes time to lay the foundation. It's not overnight. You lay the foundation, then you build upon it. You don't start building a house with the roof. I'm sorry. You start at the ground level and work your way up. So this 8 and 9, let's see if this team can build on it. Yes, I'm disappointed. I wanted the Falcons to be in the playoffs. I don't like watching other teams play in the playoffs and we at home. I don't like it. But guess what? I don't like losing either. And changing the coach means what? Get ready to wash away that foundation that you started and again try to rebuild it again. Because that's basically what you're doing if you fire everybody. You're going to be rebuilding restarting that foundation over again on that home. So that means you're going to have a whole nother year where it's developmental. It's not building on nothing. It's just we building to try to win, but you're still not going to necessarily get to where you're trying to get to. So I'll rather give these guys a second chance to get it right and see if they can put some bricks on top of the cement that's already been laid. But with that being said, like I said, I preached enough. That's my point of view on it. Like I said, I know a lot of fans are going to be upset. I know a lot of fans are not going to want to hear it. But at the end of the day, I want to see this team be successful. But the only way that we're going to be successful, we have to be patient. We have to make smart decisions, sound decisions, not decisions that's going to make us feel good emotionally. Decisions that's going to help us win. And as they say, the NFL is what? A copycat league. Look at the teams around the league that are having success. that are winning Super Bowls, not just making the playoffs, winning Super Bowls. The Chiefs, the Eagles, they're going. The 49ers, they fell off this year. They didn't even make the playoffs, but they've been a team that's been consistently NFC Championship game, Super Bowl. The Lions, they built their foundation. Now they're making a second run. Last year they lost. They should have been in the Super Bowl last year, but they came back with the same group of guys. Ben Johnson stayed put as the offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson could have had a head coaching job this last coaching go round. Guess what? Ben Johnson said, "Nah, we supposed to been in the Super Bowl last year. I'm gonna give it we're gonna run it back, and I'm gonna see if we can get it right." And it looks like they working on getting it right. They're the number 1 seed. The playoffs go through Detroit. If they had any opportunity to get to the Super Bowl, this is Detroit's chance to do it. And I'm rooting for those guys to do it because they've never won one. So they're giving us the blueprint of how to win. Build the foundation, be patient, and it will happen. If it doesn't happen, after you give it the 3-year period, then you fire. Then you rebuild your foundation and you start over. But you don't do it year 1. You don't waste these players' time, because that's what this would have been. Hiring Raheem Morris in 1 year and firing him the next year is a waste of this year. That was a waste of time. A waste of the players' time, a waste of them learning the schemes, a waste of everybody's time, a waste of another Arthur Blank year of his life wasted. So with that being said, I'll holler at you guys in the next live stream. Make sure you guys hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy my content, I have a lot more content coming for you guys. Just stay tuned. But like I said, I respect each and every one of you guys continuing to support the channel. I appreciate your opinions, your comments. Leave comments on each one of our channels. Me, Mad Mike, K Styles, Atlanta Falcons Nation. Leave you guys comments, because we're going to be looking for topics to talk about now that the season is over. I'm going to have plenty of topics to talk about for you guys, but I thought that this was fitting because the season is over. That is Raheem the right man for the job? Personally, the real answer is I don't know. It's not yes, because he hasn't proven that, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give him another shot. I'm going to give him a chance to build on what he started and finish what he started. Let's see if they can get it right. With that being said, I'll holler at you guys in the next video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up, be blessed, peace.